From the Jackson County Health Department, Tobacco Reduction Health Educator, Sarah Allison. Hi Sarah, welcome back.
Thank you.
All right, so your goal is to reduce tobacco among school children.
Yep.
We're about a week into school.
Yep.
How's it going so far?
I guess it's going well. I know working with some of the schools that they've been prepping all summer to work on anti-vaping policies and updating their tobacco policies to include vaping products. And from a couple of the schools I've talked to recently, they're well into the weeds with it.
So vaping, I think the people and companies that came up with the vaping was a way to get people off cigarettes. Mm-hmm. But it sounds like it might have added an additional problem for people like you.
Yeah, I think what people don't realize is that even though it's marketed as a safer alternative to smoking, if you are going from a traditional cigarette to vaping, probably that's true. But if you're only starting off with vaping, which most kids and teens and young adults are, it's still harmful to them. And they do, and I've talked with teens over and over, and they still think it's safe, even though there's a lot of bad things in it.
Do you blame the companies like Juul for marketing products with flavors like cotton candy?
Well, yeah. Blame's a harsh word, but I think yes. I think the general consensus among like tobacco reduction is that this is an old tactic packaged in a new way. And so way back before my time, cigarettes had flavors and they had colorful packages and they had commercials geared towards kids with cartoons, and we're seeing all of that come back again with vaping. So it's just a little bit more updated graphics, I would say.
And recently, I think just these past couple of months, we've been hearing more stories about lung damage among young people. And really, we hadn't been hearing anything like that until now.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, with the articles that I've read, they haven't figured out what specifically it was, but in the Midwest alone, there's been over 160 different cases of lung illnesses related to vaping, which is pretty astronomical.
Yeah, so this makes your job harder.
It does. It does. It's a whole mindset change for kids going from, my parents do it because it's safe and my mom helped stop smoking with vaping too, but I do it because it helps relieve my stress and keeps the anxiety away, but it still has lead and nicotine and nickel and all of these formaldehyde, like these things that you wouldn't put in your body anyways, for the sake of being cool, essentially.
Yeah. So the companies have agreed to stop marketing certain flavors.
Yep.
And I think in some communities they've banned the sale of Juul or vaping products. Is this a trend you think is going to continue?
I think so. I think the more we start seeing cases, especially the health cases of people being hospitalized, I think people start picking up on that and making policy changes. One of the tricky things in Michigan is that now that Governor Whitmer passed legislation to ban e-cigarettes for youth, that e-cigarette definition isn't included in tobacco definitions. So we can't regulate it the same way, we can't tax it the same way, and if any local municipalities want to pass something that's a little bit more strict, it would be in direct conflict with the state law, which is in direct conflict with federal regulations. So it's a confusing mess.
So what are schools doing about e-cigs?
A lot of schools will confiscate it. Because now it is illegal for kids to possess it, so that's a good thing. But they'll confiscate it. I know, Lumen Christi is doing drug testing for nicotine specifically through a cheek swab, which they've been doing drug testing, so this just adds another extra piece to it. To show that, because kids probably aren't smoking cigarettes, but they're vaping. A couple other schools have changed the language in their policies to say specifically vaping is banned on school property, which is good because you don't want to go to a football game and be inundated by a cloud of vape. And whether you like the smell or not, there's no good things in a cloud of vape. So they're working on it, working hard.
Are we seeing any reduction in the use of traditional cigarettes by school students.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, actually, it's like dramatically gone down. I think with high schoolers, we're at like a 5% use rate for cigarettes, but with vaping, we're at like 28%.
Wow.
Yeah, and within middle schoolers, it's increased 175% in the last year.
Really?
Yep,
Vaping.
vaping specifically.
So it sounds like there are more people vaping than would have been smoking.
That would be an interesting study to see how it has compared to like tobacco cigarette use in the past, like with the trends, because I think it's probably pretty on par.
Well, some countries, and I think they're talking about this in the United States, the warnings on cigarette packages are getting much more graphic.
Yes.
And it sounds like it's having an effect.
I would think so. I'm going to use this as an example because Europe does this a lot. I studied abroad in Ireland, and every single cigarette package we saw on the ground, because still tobacco products are like accepted litter, had like lungs that were impacted or like a mouthful of teeth that were impacted, and it was gross. And I think when people see those images, they think twice about it, because I don't think we want it.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So kids going back to school hopefully will be going back tobacco-free and staying that way. And most teens don't. Is that still?
It is. Yep, they're still active. That's through Drug Free Jackson, and they are gearing up for a whole nother school year. And vaping is one of the biggest things that they've got to tackle.
Sounds like we're going to see a lot more community conversation about e-cigarettes and vaping.
Yeah, and I would encourage every parent to look into it and talk to their kids about it, because even if their kids aren't doing it, their friends probably are. So there's a lot of peer pressure there too. So I would definitely encourage, like, there's tons of resources online to talk to your kids about tobacco, vaping, drugs, and specifically.
And it's not like cigarettes where you can smell it on someone.
Not you can, I mean, if it's flavored you can, but there's a lot of tricky ways I've learned of how to diffuse the smell, like taking well, I probably shouldn't say this on because it give people ideas, but the kids are, I mean, they take dryer sheets and put it in their shirt, and then they blow through the dryer sheet, and it mitigates the smell. So there's a lot of, people are creative when they want to get away with something.
Well, you've got a big job. Good luck this year.
Thank you. Yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, thanks for coming in.
No problem, thanks.
Sarah Allison is a health educator specializing in tobacco reduction for the Jackson County Health Department, hoping that students stay tobacco-free this school year. Next week, it's finally here. It is